This is a tribute to Washington State, this being an apple state. This poem is Apples Cause Mankind Awake. Inside Eaton's gates, apples cause mankind awake. Arab sheiks say beauty is the apple of the eyes. And perhaps Lorca said apple is the apple of deep sleep. On the moon there are no apples, Winesap or Granny Smith. In the rest of the cosmos, fair apples but a few. Before I go anywhere, I pluck a red delicious moist with dew. Dollar to dollars, Allah is banned. News on family tables again. Now apple chips that launch 1,000 ships hit fair markets, while neglected orchards, Bogan's apples, breast and fire lament. This spread in intimate beds, Johnny Appleseed across the land. Marketing 123 in financial news if he comes again. But we always remember those who stand to gain took a chance. They grabbed the land, imported the seeds, and located right manure. They legislated water, went deep into Mexico for the labor, and they shouted their views against the frost that labor lost. Scrupulous with high arithmetic, they roll off their counting errors. Therefore, Lincoln's wheels only for few and not for the poor, who came across borders, soil out outhouses, and don't know how to lock the door. Apples were within the reach of pharaohs inside ancient pyramids, but empires crumble because of certain lack in tech. The worms they invited made their way to the biblical core, and research as they may, blame it on the liberals and gays, they can refute crab apples with the view, surely I'm of no use. This being election year, this poem's about how to win an election. It's simply called In My Little Room. In my little room, the emperor removes his robe, and we chat about the mechanics winning an election. I came, I saw a conqueror, he says. When the moon comes out above the dilapidated warehouse, he asks me the profanity going to the moon and back again to the same ghetto room. If it pleases your majesty, I say, the gods make the ghettos. I'm king, says the emperor. I shall have no gods. And he shakes, nearly spilling his oolong tea. When it's calmed down enough, I drop 2 lumps of sugar into his cup. He marvels at my calculus book in integration theory and digital watch. Had I one of those, he says, I would have timed my crossing the Rubicon at 18. And what barbarian woman would not have given herself for that? He yawns imperially over my utensils, books, and cot, and asks me to cross the Rubicon with him. And I nod while doing tax equations for His Majesty, because the hour is late. He's delighted with the hot chocolate that I made on the hot plate, and after making a rough estimate of the roaches on the wall, he sleeps in my cot as any sovereign would. I rattle my typewriter like a machine gun all night, partly because it's my habit, and partly to protect my friend the Emperor, for though he's crossed the Rubicon with the bravest of men, he's yet to sleep a single night in the ghetto. This next poem is my first published poem in a local tabloid in Seattle. It's called Goldfish. The goldfish in my bowl turns into carp each night, swimming in circles in the day, regal, admired by emperors. But each night, while asleep, it turns into silver, a dagger cold and sharp, couched in one spot, enough to frighten cats. The rest of the furniture squats in the cold and dark, complains of being a lone man's furnishings, and plots a revolt. I can hear myself snore, but not their infidelity. sometimes awake with a start, silently they move back into their places. I have been unpopular with myself, pacing in my small square room, but my uncle said, even in a palace, you can but sleep in one room. With this, I become humble as a simple preacher, saying I have no powers, they emanate from God, and with this I sleep soundly, fish or no fish, dagger no dagger. When I wake, my fish is gold. It pleases me with a trail of bubbles. My furniture has been loyal all night, waiting to provide me comfort. There was no conspiracy against a poor man, and with this, I consider myself king. In the this one's I live in little rented rooms, and a lot of people still live in small rented rooms. So I take a moment and reflect what if someone living in small rented rooms would think. It's called A Moment in My Rented Room. I sometimes think of myself as an astronaut in my compact rented room and look upon the bookshelf with its deep mathematics books for deeper space, as for my voyage from which one cannot return. They multiply by several million men who cannot marry, men who cannot own homes or work or go to college. This is almost equal to the space effort. But why all that money? I can go to Pluto by just being in a bad mood. Sometimes I think of the loneliness of deep space in my rented room. The neighbors have busily gone off to Epsilon Centauri or Galaxy X 2137 or to the 7-Eleven. Sometimes I look at my 16-ounce jar of coffee. I know what the minimum requirements are. Cybernetics steers me to avoid collisions, black holes, or stars. In my hot place, it stains me with pinto beans and bacon rinds. In my mini stereo, always the Blue Danube. It's raining today. My room is a bastion. I'm fighting the sparse bars of prison. I'm building a spaceship. I'm designing a spaceship. I'm building mental atom bombs. Multiply this by several millions. A poem that Leopoldo especially liked. Um, it is simply called If There Was a Choice. If there was a choice between reading about reality or seeing and touch a thought as braille, the volume of the world funnels in through a gap in the window. The old factories in the industrial distance, the salt of the Bay Air. If there was a choice, I meditate on plum blossoms. No, I wouldn't view flowers on horseback, nor would I eavesdrop on the crescendo song and dance behind the imperial door. If there was a choice, I choose to be poor, unnoticed, unrewarded, unfettered by ropes and language, social mores. If there was a choice, I would not obey the rules of pickpockets, of dog meat vendors, paperback writers, insurance salesmen, tavern bouncers. I just amble, stare at the cracks in the sidewalks, and envision a dandelion shooting through, yellow and fine. Or imagine a blackberry vine in the inner city, growing okay without city rain, heaven's pennies if stains from taking. If I had some choice, I have a morsel of rice and some tea, hot or with ice. If I'm beggar to king, if the choice was really mine, I simply choose to be kind. Now we had some very serious poems. Now let's have a comic relief, a nonsense poem about cats. Okay, people should be kind to animals. They should be kind. This one about cats. Cheshire, none the worser. There was a cat from Cheshire who loved salmon with Worcestershire sauce, in part with his arbitrary owner, who claimed to be the boss. The cat was named Fat, and the human fellow, his name was Splats, who lost all his money at the stocks when it fell to nil, and so the fellow's wife, known as Lil, divorced the potbelly SOB and left the scene with all the fleas. And so Splash climbed onto the building's ledge and fought the battle full-fledged, finished the bottle of gin, then fought the wind, took the dare, and jumped down the air. Meanwhile, Fat finished the salmon and rolled contentedly on the ground when Splash exhausted the altitude and hit the sidewalk head first. People stood in gawk and all agree who is indeed the fellow named Splats. So, folks, be kind to animals, be kind. This one is about the coastal highway 101 in about the year 1960. It was in effect a river of sorts. The ocean returned its water across the vacant hours at the slow crossings of the afternoon in low blood sugar towns while the pale lights of taverns burned. The barber sat in his chair listening to the vacuum tube radio, the cigar vending machine full of Indian head nickels, the Emerson Hotel with its dark stairs leading to dens of vacancy. It was in effect a town of sorts. The ocean lapped its tongue here, mudflats harbored mussels, loggers shook dice for schooners of beer, while the sky threatened rain all day. The Chinese cook diced string beans a mile long, the work expanding to fill idle hours, the Pacific tides contracting, expanding across the pretense of commerce, when small fishing boats returned with Dungeness crabs, 3 for $1. It was in effect a time of sorts. High school graduates still stay in town, and pulp and paper mills saturated the air, spelling jobs and a fair shake for small homeowners. Those towns were strung along Highway 101, the scenic route that took you to Pacifica, California, when surveying was still just getting on newsreels and soda was still dispensed in glass bottles. It was in effect a life of sorts when Vietnam was still some unfamiliar place in the Orient, and Ricky Nelson was a traveling salesman with a pretty gal in every port, and the price was right every night, and Groucho hit his marks. Those times and places burn like LSD, flashing and burning into the next century, but basically it was a time before waking up to the enormous world has a stir, while the miser still counted his pennies. Old friends. Old bamboo grow thick into each other and drink of the rain. Old friends branch into each other's joys and pains. Let us grow old together like the brown hills. Huddle together. Each morning we once more escape the chill. The kind of father he was. Was he kind? I don't know, but he wasn't unkind. He kept the duck and he kept the fish, didn't throw them back. He took lumps of us, the 10 of us in the housing project. Was he approachable? He was always in a hurry, no time to talk. He wasn't inclined to talk. They liked him for that. 2 fatal accidents happened in front of a cafe. I just have to say I was 30 years removed from then. I made the brown gravy, the chicken noodle soup. I lit up the grill and tended the broth to give him another hour's sleep. Then I donned my waiter's yellow jacket and filled the soy sauce, brooding dark next to the white salt, the pepper, a shade between them. I made tea, coffee, and wiped the already clean tabletops. He always called Swanson's the first thing to order the delivery. Then he sat at the counter with his first cup of coffee in a Marlboro. Another 14 hours day stretched in front of him. He was afraid of fires. He wasn't careless, but he was still afraid of fires. My father saw people dying on the roadside in China before he came to America. He torched windows out of ships in Oakland's naval shipyards during World War II. He didn't make journeyman because he couldn't speak enough English, so I speak for him today. He brought his wife over and blamed his large family on the lack of birth control. We closed the cafe only 2 days a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. He was more American than Americans. He bet on football and competed fierce in business, though he was a Democrat all his life. The local politicians say to him, "Bill, you be the Chinese mayor of this town." And he answered, "You run for mayor, and all my 6 cents will vote for you." He answered BS with BS and kindness with kindness. In this way, he could be considered kind. All I know is one time we visited him at Lakeview Cemetery, where Bruce Lee is also buried, and someone had already placed flowers on his tombstone. But as to his benevolence, he carried that to his grave.